Hey guys, I hope this works out okay because my webcam has broken and I'm now using the one which is in my computer, which might explain why I look a funny colour, so bear with me with that. It's Thankful Thursdays and it's Rachel and I'm here with Caroline, and this week we've chosen to answer the question: how do you distinguish between your feelings? Like, for numbing them for such a long time and ignoring them, it's hard to accept your feelings or to even recognise what you are feeling at a certain time. Instead of feeling fat and worthless all the time, how do you actually feel emotions, or even recognise what you're feeling, or even allow yourself to feel them instead of aiming to feel nothing all day long because it's too much? I'll start with some sort of basics, really. An eating disorder takes away those feelings. It stops you from interacting. It stops you from feeling how others might feel. It completely numbs you out, and you actually stop feeling very much of anything. At least that was my experience. That the more I lost weight and the more I restricted my intake, the less I began to care or feel. And then compensatory behaviours such as over-exercising were a way of distracting myself even more from even letting myself anything close to feel. I don't think it's automatic that we numb those feelings. I think it's something that happens as a consequence of the eating disorder. And in the same way that an alcoholic drinks to forget, I believe an eating disorder person utilises food and weight as a way to protect and to keep themselves from feeling what might otherwise be incredibly overwhelming and incredibly difficult. And after a while, you begin to forget. At least for me, I did. I began to forget what feeling was. I couldn't distinguish what sadness was. I couldn't distinguish what anger was. I couldn't distinguish what was anxiety. All I knew was that whenever I did feel something, it felt completely out of control. And for me personally, it was very all or nothing. I would either feel absolutely everything and be completely overwhelmed and completely crash myself down, or I would literally be so detached, so numb, so empty that there was nothing there. There was absolutely nothing there. In terms of being able to describe how I was feeling or even know what I was feeling. The experiences for me then followed that if I did begin to feel something, it would usually be associated to the eating disorder. So for me personally, because I was a restrictive anorexic, if I ate something that didn't feel safe, or I ate more than what felt safe, I would feel a number of things. I would feel guilt, I would feel fear, I would feel disappointment, I would feel worthless, I would feel fat. I would feel all of these incredibly negative emotions, and I would label them as fat. I feel fat because I just ate that. I wasn't even paying attention to what my thoughts were and thus producing the feelings. All I was going straight from, I've eaten too much, I feel fat. There was no kind of way of stopping and sitting down and thinking, well, do you know what? Is that how I'm feeling? And for me, it very much became allowing myself to maybe say, okay, I'm feeling fat. Okay, what has caused me to feel this way? Okay, it's because maybe I have more at dinner than I would normally allow myself, or I've eaten something different, or I've gained a pound, or I've not gained any weight and I've not lost any weight, or I didn't like how my top was on me. And what I would try then to do is sort of say, okay, you're feeling fat, okay, you might be feeling that, your emotions might be that, but in my head, what is actually going on, other than just me criticising my own body or criticising myself and feeling myself as being worthless. And I would try to say, well, hang on, what's happened here that could have affected this, that could have made me feel this way? So if I wake up in the morning and I weigh myself and I feel fat, I can maybe say, well, is it because you weighed yourself that you feel fat? Okay, so has it got anything to do with the behaviour that you've been using? And I would try then to sort of eliminate that behaviour. So I would say, okay, all that going on the scale does to me is makes me feel worthless. Okay, I feel worthless as it is. This eating disorder makes me feel worthless. I don't need to be doing behaviours that are going to make me feel more worthless. And so I would start to cut out those behaviours. Okay, it's a bit more difficult if you're trying to challenge food and you're sort of feeling these difficult emotions without being able to name them, because you're eating more. But what I will say to that is that if you can learn to understand what those feelings are, if you can sit down, and what I did with my therapist was I wrote down sad, I wrote anger, and I wrote anxiety. And she said to me, think of a situation that made you feel sad. And it was very, very difficult. Think of a situation where you feel anger. Think of a situation where you felt anxiety. It is so difficult to do that. But over time I began to say, well, hang on, I cried at this. Does that mean that I was sad? Crying doesn't always mean that you're sad. You could be angry, you could be anxious, you could be all sorts of things. So I'd sort of say, okay, well, I think when I'm angry, when I've been angry before, I think my heartbeat went really, really fast. I started to get racing thoughts. I was feeling impulsive. And I would just write these things down. And okay, it wasn't always really easy to distinguish, because I think that what happens with emotions, especially when we've been numb, is we suddenly feel 10 million things at once, and it's like boom, boom, boom. We feel sad, we feel angry, we feel anxious, we're afraid, all of these things, and it becomes so incredibly overwhelming that all it then ends up doing is us going back to using behaviours to try and contain those feelings. And as my therapist always says to me, my feelings aren't going to kill me. How I feel is not going to kill me. My behaviours and my actions based on how I'm feeling can kill me, but how I'm feeling cannot. And so what I'd maybe advise you to do is that if you're having a moment where you're feeling incredibly overwhelmed, is to actually give yourself some space, maybe write down some of what is going on, and do this kind of exercise whereby you try and determine what it is that you're feeling and what is possibly triggering it. Because the only way that you're going to learn to deal with your emotions is by facing them, and by blocking them through using behaviours. Okay, that might seem like an easy way out, and sometimes you'll do that without even realising, especially if some of your defences are things like are so automatic to you that they just happen. Like, I'm anxious, I get up, I start cleaning the house as soon as I wake up. I don't even realise that I was anxious. I'm just like doing. I'm up here, I'm down there. And sometimes I think you just have to stop and just say, enough. What's going on here for me today? What is happening? What is making me feel like I'm sort of anxious all day? What is it that isn't connected to food, isn't connected to my body? And try and get underneath that. I could talk about this for ages, and I've only got a little while left now, so what I'm going to suggest for people out there is to keep some sort of mood diary. Every hour, just write down maybe the situation that you're in, so sort of in lounge with friend, chatting, feel okay, not particularly anxious, or, mood in terms of good or bad. My mood's about 50-50, I'm feeling a bit low, feeling a bit like this, and just try and track that really. And then what that might enable you to do is to look at the situation, and if you're finding you're sad in a certain situation, you might be like, oh, well, I'm sad quite often when I'm in this situation. What is it that's making me feel sad? And explore those feelings, and please, please, please don't be afraid of them, because they're not going to kill you. They are not going to kill you, and you have the resources and you have the strength within you to deal with your feelings. You can come through this. You will come through this. It's just a matter of getting used to it and trying to deal with it, because if you block them all out, they're going to come and hit you a million times faster. So just take some time for yourself. Think about maybe what is making you feel uncomfortable, and try and get behind that rather than using eating disorder issues. Alright guys, thanks a lot. Bye.